So with that, how did you get started like in Rapzilla?
Well, how did you get started in media in general before Rapzilla?
Yeah,
So in
good question.
journalism, yeah. So I, I went to college of Staten Island. I didn't go to a like a fancy college. I stayed home in my community, and I got my journalism degree. And I was super fortunate enough that I only spent one summer teaching summer camp and delivering pizzas before I actually got an adult job. so
Let's
it,
go.
so it was dope. Someone from my church worked for. You guys ever heard of the Christian Post?
Yes.
Mm.
The
I've been trying
big,
to
Never
reach
heard of
them.
it.
I've been trying to
really?
reach it. Yo, Christian Post, hit me up. I emailed you.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Christian Post. They're
Try to
like
get
the
the
Well, you
features.
got to connect right now, man.
at least nah, not with me no more. Not after I finish my story. Um, but
Now to finish the story. Oh man,
they
they're not gonna
were.
email me back.
Yeah, I don't know if they still are, but at the time, it's the biggest Christian publication in the world. They were getting like 12 to
Wow.
14 million like viewers, page views a month.
Were
Mm.
those the
Um,
ones that were giving out the newspapers to all the churches?
no,
Oh,
online
online.
That's
website.
all online. Yeah.
Yeah, so one of my friends from my church, actually, he wasn't even my friend yet. He just went to my church. He's like, "Hey, you do journalism?" He's like, "I got a job at the Christian Post in Manhattan. They're hiring." And I went and I got the job. I didn't think I did, but I did. Um, and I wound up doing that for about 2 years, and then they advanced me over to another website once I figured out
You were
like how
writing?
to. Yeah, I was writing, reporting. Then they moved me to this website where it was like beta testing videos. They
Yeah.
basically created their own Christian version of YouTube,
Oh
which
wow.
is it's whack. But they had me uploading. They had me uploading Christian videos off of YouTube onto their YouTube platform.
Oh, so you were ripping the videos and then re-uploading.
That's all. They had me doing that for like a year and a half, and I was like,
Wow.
"Yo,
Does the
I'm
site
like,
still exist?
yeah, but I don't know what they do with this." It was called a
Okay.
Good News Line, but
Oh, never heard of it.
that was yeah. Neither have I since I left there, and but I was studied to be a journalist, and they just have me like uploading videos to a website for like a year and a half, and I'm like, "Yo, this is driving me crazy." I started doing interviews and stuff on the side. Uh, I actually ran a magazine, like an actual print magazine, called Broken Records Magazine, that was started on Staten Island, and it covered all genres of music, rock, pop, very little hip hop. But I was running that whole thing with this other guy, and basically, how he got the magazine, how he would get coverage to like major festivals, like your Warped Tours. Like he would get into the Garden, and he would
Wow.
show up with a laminate that said Broken Records Magazine. They'd be like, "Yeah, I'm here to do photography for whoever, like Carrie Underwood or like people like that." And like, "Oh, your name's not on a list." And you pull out the magazine. Oh, you never heard of Broken Records Magazine? He would like flip through the magazine and show them all his
What
pictures, and they're like, "Oh, it must be a mistake or whatever.
what a
Go ahead,
finesse.
go
Nice.
in." And they would let him in. And he was like, "I'm just a dude." So he started getting into all these places and doing photography for like major artists, like Kelly Clarkson, like
Wow.
big rock bands and everything. But he was just a photographer who started this magazine. So he brought me in. I was like, must have been like 20 or 21. So that's really how I started journalism. I had been a musician. I'd always been in bands, playing drums or doing vocals, rapping, doing whatever. Um, so I was like, yeah, music journalism, it's right up my alley, writing and doing all that. So I kept doing that magazine on the side when I was uploading all these videos, like a mindless, like monkey. Um, and I started getting like really cool interviews, and I wound up getting like a really dope, huge interview for the Christian Post. I was like, I know I'm not a reporter here right now, but I can
Is that
get you. You know who Scott Stapp is, the singer of the band Creed? The
Yeah.
band Creed, the lead
Yeah.
singer
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
band.
I know who
he's
Creed is.
A big artist, and
Right.
he was coming to Staten Island, and I was like, I can get him into the Christian Post. He's a Christian, or he was. I don't know. He had just written a book, so I got him to come there, and I did this interview with him on camera and everything. And again,
Wow.
I'm just a dude who was like, they had me writing
Uploading
trending
videos.
stories. Like prior to that, I was writing about like Justin Bieber and Jeremy Lin, like Christian entertainers.
Mhm.
And then they moved me to that video thing, and then I got this website. And then I started writing. Then they brought me back to writing, and they're like, yeah, you don't get a lot of hits, so we're gonna, if you don't get like 30,000 hits a week, we're gonna have to let you go.
Oh,
So
Wow.
I had to figure out how to get clicks. And that same friend who got me the job threw me a lifeline, and he was like, yo, I write about video games sometimes, and those get a ton of hits. And at the time, Xbox One and PS4 were coming out, and there was like a new Pokemon game and a new Smash Brothers, all that stuff. So I started writing about that, and my hits were piling up, and I was getting like over 1 million views a month on my articles.
wow.
So then they were just like, yo, like, you know what you're doing. Now we're just going to give you this website. It's called BREATHEcast.com. We just bought it. We want it to be like our MTV, like our Christian music hub of the Christian Post. We're going to make you the assistant editor, and you're going to run that whole ship. So that was like my dream job. I got that job as assistant editor of BREATHEcast. I had everybody come in to the New York office. We had the Lecrae in there, KB. We had like your Carrie Jobs, TD Jakes, like all of these huge people within Christian media, all genres.
And you were interviewing them.
I was interviewing them either on the phone. We had another girl. You guys remember the singer Jeannie Ortega? She had a song Crowded with Papoose.
Yeah.
So she's a Christian. She got a job at the Christian Post too, and her and I were co editors of this website. We ran the ship, but she was more of the on-air face, and I did more of the phone
Behind the
stuff,
scenes.
a lot of the writing and the production behind the scenes. So we did all that stuff, and I did that, did the Dove Awards, did all that for like a year and a half, and then we came in one day, and the writing was kind of on the wall. They were like, yeah, we're going to shut down the New York office, and all like 50 or 40 something people that were there, they laid everybody off.
Oh,
Wow.
They had another office in DC, and they just relocated, everything to DC, and everyone in New York, except for like 3 or 4 people, were let go. So I thought I was going to be the one that they didn't let go, because I was like, man, I've killed it here, everything that I've done. And, I was always in meetings with the upper management. So like, I thought I was upper management. I was like, yo, I'm good. And they're like, yeah, you're out too. And I was like, dang.
Wow.
So it was just like, okay, well now what do I do? It's the only, I was fortunate, like right out of college, I got a journalism job, and this market is tough. And it was a journalism job in a field I knew, Christian music. So I was like, I couldn't have gotten in like a more perfect, spot than that.
Right.
So now, like, this is the first time I was going to be like unemployed, where it's like, like a job outside of college, not like, well, I guess I could just go back to delivering, pizzas or doing what I was doing. Like, I was like, I needed to do more than that. I was married. We have a house, I didn't have kids yet, but it was just like, yeah, I need to find a job.
You should have met with that other dude that got $1 million from unemployment.
New business. Right.
Yeah, I'd be right next to him right now. So that's when I had previously met Chad from Rapzilla. I wasn't friends with him or anything, but I had met him. He had come to the office actually. With, you guys know who Tim Trudeau is, or Trudeau from Syntax Records?
Oh yeah. From Syntax, yeah.
From Syntax. So him and Chad worked together at Syntax for years, and Chad was doing Rapzilla too. So they had come, and I had met both of them. And when I was unemployed, I was like, well, let's try this freelancing thing. So I hit up Rapzilla, and it was Chad and Phil Rude was still there at the time. And I was like, yo, do you guys, have paid freelancers? And they were like, nah. I was like, okay. And then that was it. Like, that was the whole email. It was like, nah. But then they sent a follow-up, and they're like, well, we know who you are, so like, shoot us an offer. So I really lowballed myself. Like, it was like, I'll work for like $10 an article or something like that. So I was like, I just want to get my foot in the door on something. And I was like, they can't say no to $10 an article. And they didn't. And then I suckered myself out for the first little while. But And then Tim actually hooked me up with some freelancing gigs at CCM Magazine.
Okay.
So I found
Hey, emailed you guys too.
Yeah. Well, they eventually let me go too. But don't go where I've been. That's the lesson, I guess. Yeah, like they restructured and everything. I almost had a job with them, and then they were like, "We wanted to, but nobody has a job now." And I was like, "Okay." So I did well with Rapzilla, and then eventually I was like, "Yo, do you guys like need someone to be on the team? Like, I literally have nothing going on. I need money. I will be here every day, and by here, my house. You know, I can just show up. I wake up and I'm ready to go." So that's how I got involved with Rapzilla. And it was like, I did like 20 hours a week for about 6 months. And then it was 30 hours, and then it was 35. And then eventually it was like, "Hey man, like you're doing everything. You're the editor. You're in charge of this thing." And I was like, "Yeah, I am." Like everywhere I've gone, you know, from Broken Records magazine to Christian Post, like I worked my way up to be the guy.
That's really dope. That says a lot about your work ethic.
Yeah, man. Real. Thank you. Like my thing is like, you know, I am a slow starter, like admittedly, but I was like, yo, but once I get it, yo, everybody watch out, because I get obsessive. Like I was like, yo, I'm pounding out articles, I'm interviewing people. I have to strive for that excellence.
So, and what else is encouraging is like you didn't give up with the, you know, after being let go of twice, right? In journalism, you didn't just like say, I'm gonna just stop doing this. Maybe this isn't for me. You just kept going, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's wild because say I graduated with maybe like 60 to 70 people that were, you know, took journalism with me. It's like me and maybe one or two others that are still actually doing journalism.
Wow.
And that have actually, and out of like those 60 or 70, maybe 10 actually even made it to get a journalism job. So I'm, you know, you keep tabs on people, especially when you're that small of a group, you know, your friends on, you know, LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever. And it's just like, yo, none of these people are writing, or half of them aren't even in communications, like of any kind, like marketing, social media, nothing. And it's tough out there because technically anybody can do what I'm doing. Whether you do it as well as me is a different story, but like anybody can do it. Anybody can break news at any point. You pull out your phone, like this 10-year-old kid, there could be a fire in a neighborhood. Kid pulls it out. He goes live on Instagram. He just broke the story of there's a fire in your neighborhood. That kid gets, you know, 100,000 views, and they're like, "Oh, who's the journalist who broke that story? Oh, little Timmy, the neighbor." So like, anybody could do this. Anyone can have a blog. Anybody can record videos from their house, have a podcast, you know, do whatever. So it's super competitive.
Right.
So it's just like, how do you make, just like rappers, technically anyone can rap. Anyone can make beats in their house now. Anyone can record themselves. So it's trying to like rise above, you know, what makes you stand out from everyone else. So that's what that's like the work ethic I've tried to have. Like, I know you can do this, but can you do it as well as me?
Right.
So in that way, I'm kind of like a rapper. Like a rapper wants to eat everybody on the beat. They want to destroy everybody. Me, like I want to kill everyone with an amazing story. You know, I want to write if I'm interviewing you, I want you to feel like this is the best story that's ever been written about you in your entire life.
Right.
And that's kind of how I approach everything.
Now, how long have you been on Rapzilla for?
So I got laid off October 2015. So it's actually, and started writing with Rapzilla. I think my first article was like late November around Thanksgiving. So it's been about 5 years.
Wow. Congratulations. Happy anniversary.
Congrats. Thank you.
And it's crazy because like you're saying, like there are about 60, 70 people that you might have graduated with or received that journalism degree, but they all can do it because they're all in a bigger space, right? Like it's even more competitive for you because now you're talking in the Christian world where that gets a little bit smaller as opposed
ain't too many jobs, right?
Right.
Well, yeah, it's yes and no. It's not competitive in the sense that I'm concerned that other people are going to come. I'm competing against other people because there's not that many that are like specifically, you know, can do like that. But at the same time, it's smallness, right? So like, they'd be like, oh, Rapzilla is like the complex of Christian media. No, we're not.
Right.
Do you know how big complex is? Do you know how small Rapzilla is? There's 3 of us on Rapzilla that are full-time dedicated. And one of them is Chad, and he's the owner. And, you know, he's got a day job. So as far as a day job, there's 2 people at Rapzilla. There's me and Steven Solis. And we are the only ones who run all of Rapzilla. We get, you know, almost 500 submissions a week. We got the ads, we got the playlist, we got all the interviews. And Steven doesn't write. Steven does all the back end stuff. So then all that other posting and going through the submissions and all that stuff, that falls on me. And then we're blessed with a couple of contributors, freelancers that help us out like here and there, or at least we have ideas to throw back and forth. Like they're another set of eyes because I can't see everything. And, you know, unfortunately not in the position to pay them right now. But I was like, yo, I will do anything for you guys. And most of them are younger, like in college. So it's like, you need that letter of recommendation. You need me to edit your paper, you know, for
that's really dope though. That's really dope though.
That's dope.
You know, you need help finding another job. You know, you need advice on college or journalism. Anybody you want to interview, any album, early sneak peek you want, like I got you. You guys are helping me out. So I owe you whatever you need. So that's basically how we're operating right now. And the hope is to grow so we can get like a complex.
Right.
And
I think that's really cool that you offer that to people. You know what I mean? Because it also, like, a lot of people would be like, we don't have any money to hire anybody, so we can't get the work done. End of story. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where you find a solution and, you know, you kind of leverage what you have and you bring value to them, you know, by offering all of those incentives. That's really dope.
Yeah, man. Because I know if I've been in that position, you know, I've been on the other side. That magazine that I ran for 4 years, ran it like a full-time job. I never made a cent off of that magazine. And I did that for 4 years. I edited every article, you know, I helped do the layout of the magazine, printing. I was at festivals. We never, me and the owner, we never made $1. We did it because we loved it. We did it because there was experience to be gained. Like without that experience of doing that, I would be nowhere now. Like I learned how to interview artists. I learned how to hustle. I learned how to, I wouldn't say lie, but like give off like the persona of like, yo, like we're a legit magazine, even though like we weren't. But I was able to have, you know, that confidence. Like I can interview anybody.
Speaking by faith,
right? It was just like, yo, like we literally got no budget, but like we're standing in a room with somebody who, you know, sold over 1 million albums. I got to be on Chris Jericho's tour bus. Chris Jericho's in a band called Fozzy, and we interviewed his band Fozzy. We didn't get him. Someone else was interviewing him. We got his guitar player, but Jericho was across the. And I was saying,
you were breathing the same air.
Yeah, it's a tour bus. It's a tour bus that had hallways and bedrooms. That's how big this tour bus was. So he was like on the other side, and we were sitting at the kitchen table interviewing someone. And I'm holding a camera, and the other guy's talking to him, and I'm just like, yo, like, what is this? I was like, Chris Jericho's like 15 feet away from me right now. Why am I even here? So it's like, so like, I totally get it. Like, you know, I've been blessed and fortunate to have opportunities thrown my way. And because of like the small spaces that I've been in, I've actually been able to elevate myself quicker. Like I ran a whole magazine because there was literally nobody else to do it. Was I qualified for it? Probably not, but I got to do it and I became qualified. When I got to the Christian Post, it was just like a bunch of, you know, it was, I'm gonna try to speak nicely about them. It was very chaotic management style. And because of a lot of the dysfunction that was there, I was able to elevate myself quicker because I was like, well, I just have to be better than the dysfunctional thing next to me. And I was able to keep going and going. And then the same thing with Rapzilla. Yo, there's no one else to do it. All right, I'll do it. And I was able to get that experience that normally they're like, yo, if you want to be an editor of a website, you need like 15 years editor experience.
Wow.
And then when you get there, you're like, well, how do you get that editor experience if you need the 15 years of editorial experience? I don't know. You figure it out. So I got it. I was able to
So you
do
figured it out.
I figured it out.
You
Started
fast tracked
small.
it. You were like, I'm
Right.
gonna do this.
Right. So yeah, it's been a really dope journey. Super blessed. Love what I do. You know, I just get to talk to people and tell stories of people's lives for a living.
So now during this journey, when was it that you met the Lord, or like was your family always in church? Did you graduate and then, like what was that transition? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's way back. So I grew up in the church. My uncle actually had a Spanish speaking church in Queens in the early 90s. I don't remember what the church was, but he was 19 years old and he was the lead pastor of this church that he founded.
Wow,
And
19.
big Puerto Rican family, there's like 500 of us, whatever, cousins, uncles, whatever.
Iglesia La Gracia.
Yeah. So my whole family was in that church. So my uncle got everybody saved, my grandparents, my mom, my aunts,
Wow.
everybody. So from the
God
time
bless
I was 2-3 years old, I've been in the church. Now, a definitive moment that I remember is, you guys know who Carmen is, right?
Yeah.
The old school
Singer,
90s rapper,
boxer,
singer, pioneer, spoken word rapper.
Right.
That was a memorable interview for him. We could talk about that later, but yeah, he used to have his huge like crusade concerts, and we had one on VHS at my house. I was like 5 years old. I remember we popped it into the VCR player, and I was watching it, and he did an altar call at the end. And like I said, the altar call, like I went with Carmen at the end of that video. And that's the first like conscious, like actual memory of like, okay, like I'm a Christian now, or whatever it was. So that was when I was 5 years old. And then just growing up through the church, growing up around Christian music. My parents owned a Christian bookstore too, from like 98 to 2003, maybe 2004. So like I always had the latest music.
Where was that at?
Staten Island. Staten Island, they had one. Wow. Yeah. So yeah, I always had the music. I always had the latest.
Yo, that's wild how like that was the only way you can get to like Christian hip hop, was like whatever the Bible bookstore had. And like for me, I remember it was like in 99, I just happened to be in the Bible bookstore picking up a Bible, right? I wanted a Bible, and they had this like the CD player where you could listen to music before you buy it. And there was a magazine there. It was like 8 Ball or something like that. Do y'all remember that? I think it was called 8 Ball or something like that. And it had a CD mixer, like a sampler CD. And I just copped it because, I listened to it. There was a couple of rap songs in there that I liked. Cross Movement was one of them. But it's just wild now how it's so easy to discover Christian hip hop music, versus back then. Like if you wasn't in the Bible bookstore, you weren't, you know what I'm saying? Like,
if you ain't see them perform, you wouldn't really get your hands on
it. Yeah, they might have not even have been allowed at your church at that point too.
True, that part too.
Right. Facts. Yep.
Because hip hop wasn't allowed. Even as I remember interviewing Tadashi, and he told me even back in 2006, he'd be going to a church, and they told him like, "Yo, you can't do that in here. You got to go to the backyard, or like the youth center."
Wow.
This is 2006. I know it's not like that anymore, but the church and Christian music are always like 15-20 years behind. Like first rock and roll was the devil's music,
right?
And then you had a couple of people come out and like, oh, this isn't so bad. All right, hip hop's definitely from the devil now. That's the new thing that's from the devil. And then you grow out of that. But yeah, and the funny thing is, like I wasn't even into like really Christian hip hop like that either. Like I listened to DC Talk when I was growing up, which people got their feelings about that, whether that was real hip hop or not. But that was like the only hip hop I knew. And then when in the early 2000s, I got really into like youth group type rap. So your KJ52s, your John Rubens. I was listening to some T-Bone back then. But then I started playing music. I started playing drums. I was in a bunch of bands. So I was like listening to all rock music. And then, some secular hip hop. you know, Eminem, G Unit, 50 Cent, all of them started popping off in the mid 2000s. So like that's what I was listening to. I had no idea anything about Christian rap until I started with that company BREATHEcast, and then they're like, "Oh, we got this guy Lecrae. Lecrae had just dropped Anomaly," and they're like,
wow,
"Yo,
so that was pretty recent."
Yeah. So they're like, "We got this guy named Lecrae. He just dropped Anomaly. He's one of the biggest Christian rappers." I had no idea who Lecrae was. I didn't know anything about the whole Reach Records Unashamed movement that like swept CHH. I knew nothing, nothing about that. Like other than, you know, T-Bone, KG52, John Rubin, like those are the only dudes I knew. Ill, Mars Ill, maybe. And I'm just like, all right, cool. Have him come in. This should be dope. And then, you know, we had KB in and we had Triple E and Tadashi was there. But that was it. It was just like the Reach guys.
Yeah.
So like it was none of, you know, his CHH is huge. CHH was huge. Even Derek Minor came in one time. I think he might have still been pro. And it's funny because I told him, because you know, I talked to Derek a bit. You know, we're pretty cool, and I'm like, bro, you came into my job, and I had no idea who you were. Like, I didn't even go and be part of your interview. Like, I shook your hand, and then I went and sat down and got back to work. I was like, yo, who is this guy? I have no idea who this guy is. And I was like, so I'm sorry, but now we do excellent interviews and stories together. So we made up for it.
Right.
Nice.
So what was your most memorable interview that you would think that you had?
Man, the most memorable ones are the really bad ones. I don't want to out people though.
Right.
Because it's some people that you're like, that guy?
Yo, did I see you interview POD?
I've interviewed
Or am I tripping?
Sonny from POD. I've interviewed him 3 times. And I'm actually interviewing him tomorrow, actually.
Wow.
Which is
Wow, look at that.
An exclusive, guys. You hear that?
Yeah, there's your exclusive. 4th time for the rapper Thomas Iannucci. He's got Sonny on his new album that's dropping.
Oh wow.
So I'm gonna interview them together.
Nice.
I mean, that was a memorable interview for me because I was a huge POD fan.
Right. You were like backstage at the Warped Tour, right?
That was, what was that? No, that wasn't Warped Tour. That was, I think that was might have been called Scream It Like You Mean It.
Okay.
Or something like that.
Yeah, I just remember seeing it and there was like loud music. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That was the last time I interviewed him, actually.
Wow.
What's really funny about that was here's a little secret. So the band Papa Roach was supposed to headline that tour, but they canceled day of because the singer's voice gave out and he needed surgery.
Wow.
Well, it turns out the guitar player of Papa Roach is Chad's brother.
What?
Chad's brother, Jerry Horton, is the guitar player of Papa Roach. That's Chad's brother.
Wow.
So I've come a lot of full circle. And we were supposed to interview Papa Roach that day, but they weren't there because they canceled on the tour.
Wow,
So,
look at that.
Yeah, that would have been crazy. But that's Sonny was definitely memorable. Scott Stapp from Creed was memorable. I spent like 2 days with him. Toby Mac, just because I was such a huge Toby Mac fan, DC Talk fan. The first time I interviewed him, I was with Christian Post, and I was okay. Like, I was really nervous. You know, I'm not where I am now. As far as I was still like really like fanboying people back then when it was like person. I was so nervous, and it was just on the phone. But I got him to do to talk exclusively about old school CHH for Rapzilla. Like, his album Elements had just come out, and I was like, I do not care one single thing about Elements, because he's going to talk. Because that's how I think when I do an interview. Like, if you're promoting an album, you're going to go on this press tour, and all you're going to do is talk about this album. You can get those answers anywhere.
Right.
I don't care about this album. I want to know about Toby Mac that was rapping in 1989, you know, 1990, what the Dove Awards were like back then when there was like no such thing as hip hop. What it was like rapping with Stephen Wiley, who like basically invented CHH. D-Boy Rodriguez, who
Wow.
was, the rapper who was
Got
murdered
killed.
in the street. Like so I was asking Toby about that. I was like, what are those early conversations with Stephen Wiley like? What do you remember about D-Boy Rodriguez? Tell me the story of how DC Talk was allowed to become a rap group. And essentially that
Didn't they get
story,
awards for that? Right?
yeah, they won a lot of awards, but so Toby was like, yo, I haven't said some of these stories in 30 years. And when he said that, I was like, this is it.
This is
the one. This is going to be crazy because I'm going to be able to tell a story that nobody knows or that nobody's heard in like 30 years. And him telling me the story about how DC Talk was acceptable in churches because he was white and rapping and the black guy was the one who sang.
Wow.
Had it been reversed, they would have
Different
never
story.
been able to get accepted. And they used to con people into allowing rap at the church. And like Michael Tate, the singer, he's the black one in the group. He's now the singer of Newsboys.
Yeah.
He would go out and sing, like he was in the choir. And Toby Mac was his sound guy. And he'd be like, so Michael would be singing, he'd be performing at Liberty University at like their convocation meetings, their chapel or whatever. He'd be like, hey, I'd like to invite my friend up to do a little something with me. I think you guys might like it. It might be cool. Like they played it like real low key.
Yeah.
And Toby would come up and you're expecting to see like this white kid with long blonde hair at the time. He's not going to rap. They just thought he was going to sing with Michael. And then all of a sudden and they start beatboxing and then he's rapping and they're like, oh, this is cool. Like, we'll allow this. This is all right. And that's basically how DC Talk started conning their way into playing in churches.
Wow.
And how hip hop became accepted as like a Christian medium of music. And like hearing that story from Toby Mac was just like, yo, like that was one of my most memorable times ever.
Wow.
And then speaking to Carmen and then telling Carmen the story, I was like, yo, I got saved listening to your VHS tape, and him not even responding and it just being radio silence. It was just,
it's pretty awkward.
Yeah, it was a really weird, I'll say it because no offense, Carmen's not listening to this. Carmen was one of my worst interviews ever of all time.
Editor, just make a star on this part, please.
If Carmen's listening, like you guys are doing pretty well. But like,
we're gonna send it to him. Damn.
It was such a weird interview. Like he had just beaten cancer. I was talking to him about this album that he had coming out, and I'm like, we're talking about all this stuff, and he's not giving me like anything good. And it's just like, yo, like,
was it dry?
What's it like? You just beat cancer. Like, what's it like? You just beat cancer, and you're dropping this album. Like, how does it feel, or whatever? And he's like, I feel good. It was like that was it. I was like, question one done, and I'm like, oh no. I knew right from the jump. I was like, yo, it's gonna be bad.
Right.
And this is like a legend. And I was like, this can't happen. Like, how am I going to
He's not media trained.
How am I going to fill up another 40 minutes of like an interview slot that I got with him? If I have like 12 questions, he just answer one of them in 10 seconds. But see, so oddly enough, it was when I started talking about his role in hip hop of Christian rap, he started lighting up. I was like, why do you think you were allowed, you were successful back then? He's like, because I was really genuine with it. And, and I was like, yo, people listening, not trying to hear Carmen do raps now. They probably weren't trying to hear it back then either. But like me as like a 7-year-old, I was like, this is dope. But like he went off on that. He gave me like a solid like 20 minutes on that. And then at the end, I was like, yeah, man, I want to tell you part of my testimony. It was like, I popped in your VHS and, I got saved to the altar call. And it was just like,
you just shut down again.
Nothing. And I was like, all right, yeah. So anyway, thanks. Thanks for the interview. He was like, all right, bye. I was like, dang. I was like, all right, man. Well, got that out of the way.
That's
crazy.
Yeah,
crazy.
Wow.
So
what's awkward?
Good.
I was gonna ask, going back just a little bit when it comes to schooling and stuff, did you always want to like niche down into like the Christian world, or did you want to be like a newscaster on like ABC or CBS or anything like that when it comes to church?
it's funny. I mean, because like I've always loved music my whole life, always. And then being in bands and stuff, I was like, let's let one hand wash the other. The real goal was, if I become a music journalist, I can help my music career by putting me to these places that will help get me seen. That never happened. Because, you know, we all know how hard it is to make it in music, but also, you know, it's just conflicts of interest and different stuff like that. But even at the same time, like it just, you know, it wasn't in the cards for what I was doing, but that was like the whole focus. I was like, I'm going to become a music journalist so I can become a famous musician. And then it's like, I have this job I could fall back on, and at least it's writing about music, because I've always loved writing, you know, enjoyed writing. I never really saw anything else that I wanted to do aside from write. That was actually obtainable, that I felt like I could do. So I did actually work for the Staten Island newspaper as an intern for like 6 months, actually doing like everyday news, like knocking on people's doors, asking for quotes and stories and stuff.
Wow.
When I was like 19 years old. You know, writing about certain neighborhoods in Staten Island, I don't think I ever did a crime scene, but like going to places after like something happened and getting reactions from people. So like, and it was actual print newspaper journalism. So like, I've actually been able to experience, again, this goes back to like the blessings of like that I've had. I've been able to experience print newspaper, print magazine, and then now like blogging and
digital,
you know, the digital space. You know, I've been able to do podcasting and videos and everything.